Hey guys, what's going on? Hope everybody's having a good day out there today. Welcome back to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and welcome back all the regular subscribers. Welcome back all the sensitive types that get bent out of shape when I say something they don't agree with. Everybody's welcome here at the channel. And today what we're going to do, we're going to have a discussion. I'm going to go over everything you need to know about the shad spawn and the mysterious shad spawn that you hear about every May and June. Sort of give you guys my thoughts on it, some of my experiences. Might help you guys catch a few more fish from now over about the next month or so. But anyway, this whole shad spawn deal, guys, you hear a lot about it because for some reason you hear, if you guys follow much of the like the Elite Series circuits, that type of stuff, tournament circuits, you always hear about guys chasing the shad spawn in May and June. But even though the thing about the shad spawn deals, even though you hear a lot of guys talking about it, it's sort of like the big glide bait, swim baits. Most people have never experienced it. Most people don't, they hear about it, but they've never really experienced it because there's actually a small window of time where this works. And if you're not at the right place at the right time, you're never gonna experience it. You're never gonna see it exist whatsoever. So I sort of want to go over in detail a little bit about what it's all about, maybe what you want to look for, and sort of talk a little bit why it's sort of like, I think it's a waste of time in my fishing most of the time, and explain to you why that is. First of all, here's the deal about the shad. I mean, depending upon what part of the country you're in, if you have gizzard and threadfin shad, man, I gotta go back inside. It's so noisy out here with all the cars and the birds, I can't even hear myself talk. But here's the deal with that. It's like from about, I'm gonna guess anytime between early May into mid-June, something like that. For the most part, that's where you're gonna be dealing with the shad spawn situation. And what happens is once that water temperature hits around 70 degrees, you start having shad that are starting to spawn. And for the most part, these shad will spawn on places that, other fish don't spawn. They're gonna spawn on, the corners of boat docks. They spawn around riprap. They'll spawn around lay down trees. I've even seen them spawning on my boat before. I've been trying to spawn on my boat, but basically they're trying to lay eggs on anywhere that they can. A lot of this occurs on places that, like I said, around rocks, boat docks, that type of stuff. What you'll notice on that is you'll notice shad spawn, and you'll see just a bunch of shad flickering on the surface, staying in one particular area, and that's what they're doing is they're spawning. Now, the deal about this spawn deal is you hear people catching fish around the shad spawn, and usually when they do, it's occurring right off the bat in the morning because this is when they're actively doing it. You don't hardly ever see shad spawning, or you don't see bass feeding on spawning shad much after the sun starts hitting the water. It's usually a low light condition deal. And because it's a low light condition deal, that's why there's a real small window of time when you can actually capitalize on it. It's usually right from daylight till a couple hours after daylight. So if you go out, say you're fishing this time of year and you're saying, okay, I want to catch some shad spawn fish, you don't know where to begin because I can't tell you guys like, okay, you need to go back in this particular area and there's going to be some shad spawning. Shad spawn where they spawn and you don't know where they're at. So the reason why I don't focus on the shad spawn and why it's such an inconsistent way to catch bass is that you basically find shad spawning by accident, just by fishing down a bank. You'll roll through an area and you may or may not see shad spawning. So you can't like go pattern it and duplicate it all over the lake. It sort of is where it is. And I'll give you guys a prime example. I was fishing a tournament on Lake Norman in North Carolina, late May tournament, and I was catching these fish. I was catching all my fish on a floating worm, and just running pockets, that type of stuff, covering water. And you heard some guys catching them on the shad spawn. So in this particular pocket that I was starting out every morning, in practice, I got in there and I noticed these shad spawning on a main lake riprap point leading back into this pocket, and there were bass busting them. What happened in the tournament is I got drew out towards the later part of the flight, and by the time that I got to this particular area, they were done spawning. The sun was hitting the riprap and they were gone. Some guys may have found some shad spawning on some banks that were protected a little bit more by sun and by the shade and caught them on there. So it's a real iffy proposition. if you see shad spawning, you can capitalize on this, and it's a great way to load the boat if you find them spawning the time you're there. Most of the time, if you catch them on a shad spawn, there's two different techniques. They're not hard to catch. These fish are up actively. Sometimes they're busting the surface after these shad. Normally, like some type of a small spinnerbait or swim jig is all you need to catch them. They're not hard to catch if you find them up there and biting. But like I said, to me, when you're talking about fishing the shad spawn, it's like fishing. It's like looking for bass in a needle in a stack of needles type of a deal. So the point of what I want to make in this video here, guys, is don't get sucked in to thinking that you're missing out on something with this big shad spawn deal. Just because you hear such and such won a big tournament on the Elite Series fishing the shad spawn, it's not that easy. I'm telling you guys right now, if it was that easy, everybody would be whacking them fishing the shad spawn, but they're not, because there's usually just a handful of guys that capitalize on this. And it just happens to be they were at the right place at the right time, and they found one little boat dock where there was some shad spawning on, and they ripped them on. I remember a tournament we fished at Bull Shoals Lake. At a Beaver Lake, a FLW tournament, and Jay Ellis almost won this tournament, or he won it, I can't remember. That he found one dock that the shad were spawning on this one boat dock, and after 9 o'clock in the morning, he couldn't get a bite, but he was loading the boat from daylight or when he got there until 9 o'clock on this one boat dock every day of the tournament, and then it was done after 9 o'clock. So he couldn't duplicate that anywhere else. He couldn't go on any other docks. It was on one dock. So that's why I'm saying that don't be intimidated or get sucked in to thinking that you've got to fish the shad spawn. And if you have problems catching fish on a shad spawn, or you simply can't find the shad, or you simply can't get bit, don't take it personal, because it's a difficult way to catch them unless you're there at the right place at the right time. So in that case, my approach to fishing in the shad spawn from May to June is, if I come upon them spawning, yeah, I'm going to take advantage of it, but I do not waste my time actively looking for spawning shad to formulate some type of a pattern. It's like a bonus if you get on it. And in my opinion, that's how you have to look at the shad spawn. It's it's a bonus to some other way that you fish. The one way that you can take advantage of it a little bit is fish shallow. Look for those places where you think you can catch some chatterbait fish, some swim jig fish, some early morning topwater fish. And if you put yourself in those positions, in those areas where those shad are more likely to spawn, you're more likely to find or come upon them like that. So anyway, guys, point of the video, don't get all hyped up about the shad spawn deal. It's highly overrated in my opinion. It can be super productive if you find it, but most of the time you're going to get frustrated trying to run that particular pattern. Just my 2 cents on it there. So anyway, hope that helped you guys understand a little bit that maybe didn't have a good grasp of it, and we'll check in later. See y'all.